All right. Well, good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for coming out this evening and giving your city a little bit time here this evening as we do the important work. My name is Jonathan Hayes, and I'm the city manager. And on behalf of the mayor and the commissioners, we want to welcome you here this evening. We are so excited for this opportunity to talk about a gem of our community, our downtown marina. This evening and the next couple of days are going to be so very important as we share kind of precedents and just some history and some ideas to help spark discussion and feedback from each and every one of you. We're so fortunate to have Victor Dover and his team here to walk us through this important exercise and again get such important feedback from each of you. So we have this tonight, this charrette. We are recording this. We're also streaming it online. And so we'll have a presentation. And then the most important part will be breaking up. And we have tables set up all around here. And we're going to use that as an opportunity to get feedback from you. We want to hear directly what you think and what you want your marina to look like. Also, we'll have kind of an open house tomorrow from 12 to 2 down in room 10. If you're happen to be watching this but can't be here in person, feel free to come by tomorrow between 12 and 2. All of what you see will be down there, and you'll be able to engage with city staff and the Dover Coal professionals as well. And then we're going to do this again tomorrow evening, right back here in the Rotunda from 6 to 8. We will be recording and streaming both this one and the one tomorrow evening. So lots of opportunities. If you want to go back and watch the presentation again, we're going to put the presentation on our website and on social media. If you've got family and friends that aren't able to be here tonight, they can please come tomorrow afternoon from 12 to 2 or again tomorrow evening from 6 to 8. But again, sincerely, we just thank you so much for giving of your time. This is an important part of the process. And as we continue our recovery effort from Hurricane Michael. So without any further ado, I have the privilege to introduce Mr. Victor Dover, who will walk us through this presentation tonight. So Victor, thank you and your team for all of your partnership and support over the last number of years, and we look forward to our time together over the next few days.
Thank you, Jonathan.
Yes, sir.
Appreciate it. Hi, everybody. I'm excited looking out here and seeing a bunch of faces I recognize from just over the last several years. My name is Victor Dover. Our firm is Dover Coal & Partners. Claire Morris Williams and Amy Groves and Kenneth Garcia from our firm are also here. We're urban designers and town planners. I've told some of you before, 6 years ago, that I think we have the best job in the world because we get to travel around all over the country and help communities figure out what they want their town to be when it grows up. And not that many weeks after Hurricane Michael blasted through here, I was speaking with your former city manager, and he was asking me about what we do and how we do it. And I said, well, I love to work in the places that have the makings of a dramatic before and after picture. And he said, oh, I think we have that after Hurricane Michael. So what a gratifying thing, before and after, to come back here several times over the last several years. We got to work on the master plans for St. Andrews and Glenwood and Millville, as well as downtown. But to see the progress that you've made, to see 7 restaurants turn into 37 restaurants, and to see public spaces reignited, to see people making marriage proposals in the middle of Harrison Avenue. Who would have ever thought, right? So glad to be back and glad to get a chance to zoom in on an area that we only had a wide-angle, high-level view of back when we were thinking about the whole downtown and all the waterfront. Now we can zero in on this piece of the Panama City Marina for a closer look. So the question before you tonight and over the next couple of days is about your vision. That we know the downtown marina is a very pregnant situation. It's about to come back in some form and be dramatically better than it was. But now's the time to sort out from all the many possibilities what would be best. And one of the rules of thumb for a project like this, where we have a lot of public hands, the best plan made by many hands involved in it, is that everybody will get something they want. Nobody will get everything they want from this process. So we ask you to come to this question with an open mind. in particular to zoom in on the area that's sometimes called the upland, which is the big rectangular piece that is north of the T-Dock, where today part of the land has been redeveloped for the hotel and the Harrison's restaurant. Where the Civic Center used to be, as seen in this photograph, is now a blank canvas piece of your town. That you get something that communities only get rarely, maybe once a generation or once every 100 years, a chance to repaint on that canvas your forebears set up. So in terms of the operation tonight, I want to describe what we're going to do. We have a short presentation for you. We'll go through it really quickly. If something goes by really fast and you want to see it again, however, just come up to me and we'll bring it back up and we'll linger on it and take more time with it. In that presentation, we're going to look back a little bit at some of the previous plans that have happened in the history of the marina. And then we're going to turn to Julie Santamaria from PFM, and she's going to talk a little bit about some precedents in other communities that are worth comparing this situation to and how they dealt with it when they had a similar piece of land to decide about on their waterfront. Now, we want to give you a presentation, so we're giving you some information, but we also, more importantly, want to get your feedback back to us. So we have a couple of ways to do that. One is there's a survey. Some of y'all have copies of it already, where you can write ideas or ask questions. And then we also are going to have an open house. So all around the room are these stations, and you can see we've got them set up with some boards where people from our team and from the city leadership will be on hand to walk you through. We're going to ask you specific questions at each one. So you'll want to spend time at each of these places around the room as we go. And so at the end of this, we'll talk a little bit about what will happen next after tonight. First, just to...
Before you jump, I'm sorry.
Do you want to
Before
clarify
we get-
anything I
no,
just
I
said?
just want to say if you...
Go ahead and correct it if I
No,
got it
not
wrong.
correcting anything. I failed to mention that we have water and coffee here at the ambassador's desk. So if you start getting tired, you can feel free to caffeinate on the city's dime.
Okay, perfect. And there are restrooms through the glass door right there as well. If you get too much caffeine, there they are. So this is the sequence. This next couple of days, we're going to have an event like tonight. We're going to have a concentrated, more collapsed downstairs version of it tomorrow. We'll do it again back up here tomorrow night. And then we'll be back in March or April with a lot of material to show you. We're asking you the question at that point, is this what you meant? So tonight is setting us up to go home and get that work together and then bring it back to you in March and April for your review. The first thing I would like to emphasize is remember that cities are always changing. They're forever evolving. They're like giant works of art that are never finished. And you get to collaborate with people to build it. It's not one person's project. In fact, some of your collaborators as city makers lived hundreds of years ago and you'll never meet them, or they'll live hundreds of years from now and you'll never meet them. You're all putting your hands on it. Every generation gets a chance to make timely upgrades. This is an old fire insurance map made when there were only a handful of buildings on Harrison Avenue. This is 1917. Another great map from Bob Hurst. Thank you, Bob. But what is interesting is that in the pioneer stages of this town, the buildings were already situated on Harrison Avenue in a Main Street way, like they were in an urban place. They were saying, we are a city, we are here. And before some of the streets were paved, they had city-fied buildings facing them. So building the place that you want was the mission of the founders. Of course, right from the beginning, because of the link to the Panama Canal, there was a focus on the waterfront and on the connection to it. And look, commercial enterprise, speaking of coffee, on the pier from the early 1900s. Here's another picture from 1917 where everybody was gathered down here for the 4th of July. And, you know, the clear thing we get from the historic photographs and from the stories we've heard many of you tell is that this part of town is a place where you've gone with your family on special occasions to watch the fireworks on the 4th of July, that sort of thing. So in the 1940s, 50s, and 60s, they picked up on this and they started extending and enhancing that connection to the water. So this is an old view of how the area that is today the marina looked at the end of Harrison Avenue in this old postcard. as seen from the air. And it included public space. That green grass you see in the foreground there is a park on the waterfront. But it also included business, as you can see on the left side of that crescent. So it was always a mix of these two things. By the 1950s, they were extending the solid marina out, first that big rectangle, then what we now call the T-dock, which extends out on the far side. And the Civic Center was erected at that time. And so gradually it accumulated to be in this state just prior to the storm. And you can see the covered boat slips in the middle of the two basins. You can see the T-dock close up. You can see the extension basically of Harrison Avenue on axis with that T-dock, and the old City Hall and Civic Center where they were. If we jump ahead to where we are now, those basins are set to have their boat slips re-erected in 2026. Those are in engineering at this point. And we have a drawing for you to show what that looks like. And of course, it was just a figment of the imagination in 2018, 2019, but now we have the Hotel Indigo on the waterfront and Harrison's restaurant bringing people back down. And even more importantly, between them and the water's edge, that public promenade restored where we have the ability to walk along the water's edge and watch the sunset. Now in 2019, our firm got pulled in as you were all working hard to clean up all the debris and figure out what to do next for long-term recovery, not just the immediate recovery. And we worked together to produce this, what was called the strategic plan for Panama City's historic downtown and waterfront. And that very large area that's described by the red dotted line is the area that we were looking at. And as you can see, the waterfront piece where the Civic Center and was once located was just one small part of it. And for those who weren't there, I'll say it was an extensive process. We had hundreds of people come and work on the plan, contribute their ideas. We constantly brought it back and said, is this what you meant? Is this what you meant? And from choices there and from the responses to the surveys, we derived the ultimate plan. It involved taking a fresh look at things that for many of the residents were very familiar, but nothing will wake you up to the possibilities of this place like a history tour by Mr. Hurst. We sat down around big maps, and we have big maps tonight to do something similar, and asked people to lean in and draw their ideas. What would you like it to be like? These are examples of the drawings that came out from one of those sessions. There were no great artistic works that came from that exercise. It was all done very quickly with magic markers, but there was a lot of information. One of the public promenade, for example, I just mentioned, was an idea that came up in one of those sessions. So the point of showing you this is to say that by volunteering your time and coming out tonight, you're not wasting your time. The ideas you bring up are likely to find their way into the ultimate plan. Now, we might move your idea from over here to over there because we learned something from someone else that made us convinced that would work better, and we'll show you that and say, Mr. Morse, remember your idea? We moved it over here. Is that all right with you? So we're going to be having those dialogues with you over the coming weeks. And just like we're doing during the day, tomorrow and the next day, we had special topic meetings with technical experts or one-on-ones with city leaders, things like that. And then we came back into the rotunda and showed everybody what we had. That, if you haven't looked at it, I would urge you to go to the website and take a look at that report. It has 10 main ideas. I won't go through all of them, but the number one idea was that public access to the waterfront should be preserved and then enhanced. Here you can see the idea of a tree-lined promenade between the hotel and the waterfront. And you got that. Now, maybe the details exactly like our sketch from back then, but the fundamentals of it are very much there. And of course, that hasn't always been the case. There were parts of the waterfront that the citizens of Panama City have been fenced off from for decades or nearly a century, and now you have access to them. So, and we always thought that this would happen gradually, that there would be some part of it you would start with, and then that would get added to, maybe a little at a time, until it could become more complete. So we concentrated, because there was that potential right there on that corner, mostly on the west side, facing the sunset where the Hotel Indigo ended up situating. We put a little bit of thought and time also into the east side of that big rectangle. I'll talk more about that in a moment. Of those cornerstone ideas, another important one was that the place needs to acknowledge that you're living with water, that there's flood risk, there's sea level rise, that what you need here is resilient infrastructure that can acknowledge the need to live with water. So that ended up being an important part of the plan. Another one of the themes was connectedness, that for not just for moving stormwater out of your way to keep you from flooding, but when you want to move around in the town, whether you're walking or driving or riding your bike or using transit, that the key connections should be set up. And of course, the ultimate connection in any town is its main street. So Harrison Avenue has been reconfigured as a better connection. One of the cornerstones was that there should be gathering places. We certainly knew that there were existing parks and squares that should be protected, upgraded, and enhanced, protected, but that there should be a possibility of creating some new ones. And a couple of those in our sketches at that time were on the upland portion of the marina. This is a sketch we did, and just to point at it for a minute. Let me see, can you see my red dot? Okay, so this ultimately became, just like drawn here, the site for the Hotel Indigo and that promenade that I described. And of course, there's the public space that they use very creatively and the Harrison's restaurant. And what we imagined at that time was that those built up building parts of the marina environment would be a natural extension of Harrison Avenue. And then we thought over here in the other part, if the Civic Center does not need to come back and ends up finding a new home, which ultimately your city did decide that the Civic Center will be rebuilt, but in another location, that this portion, the southern or southeastern piece of the uplands, could be used any number of other ways. This version shows that green triangular park and then a site for development. So building on part to generate the revenue to save the rest was the idea. Now there were variations on it. So here's just looking at some of those variations. Again, if this is of interest, you want to download the report and look at it in detail, but I can also bring it back up on the screen. This is a slide we showed at that time, illustrating a comparable waterfront park. This is White Point Gardens on the Battery in Charleston, South Carolina. You know, Charleston's a peninsula, so that very tip point of that peninsula juts out in the Charleston Harbor across from Fort Sumter, and that's where they made their waterfront square. So that's where they go to look at the sunset. And White Point Gardens looks like this, beautiful, has mature trees and shade and monuments, and it becomes the most desirable place to get your engagement photos or have a special event. So they had a few hundred years head start on you in Charleston, but there's no reason you couldn't have similar public spaces. Now, that was way back in 2019 when we put pen to paper on it ourselves as Dover Coal. In the meantime, it's been looked at by several others. One group, Wooden Partners, in 2024, did a very revealing set of drawings, and theirs were, for the first time, the drawings were reflecting the now new idea that the boat ramp would stay in this location and boat parking would remain available in this location. So what you're seeing now, and it's different from the one I showed you before, the old working assumption was that the boat ramp would move. Sage Harbor would replace it. The new working assumption is that there will be a boat ramp and that there will be boat parking. So they got a chance to draw it. So our colleagues at Wooden Partners did a number of versions, and I'm just showing you what some of them are, with big green rectangles marked TBD, to be determined. So they left something for us to think about. But other parts of it for a public amphitheater, for that building sites, for that extension of Harrison Avenue, a bigger TBD site, a bigger amphitheater. These are the kinds of analyses that they did. Oh, here's an even bigger one. they did at least 6 or 7, 6 that we know of for sure, but, you know, trying to show all the different ways that might be configured. So we have that as a starting point, something to think about. I want to go back to the boat slips for a minute. You know, the key to this, of course, is that between the upland rectangle we've been talking about and along the grassy promenade on either side of it, and then connecting up to the T-dock, are the boat slips. And so these are preliminary drawings that the engineers have done to illustrate the way the basins and their boat slips will be built back. So this is in the works, okay? Now, I'd like to, at this time, bring up Julie Santamaria. Julie, there you are. She's with PFM, and they're kind of looking at the business side of this and they've been commissioned by the city to give advice about all the different alternatives. Step one in that, let's look at some peer communities. Julie.
Thank you. I'm Julie Santamaria with PFM Financial Advisors, and we are working with the city as your fiduciary to help you design the optimal park and development for the waterfront. And we specialize with helping cities throughout the state and the country finance similar types of projects like this. So we put together just a list of some developments that we're seeing all across the state, just to give some thought to what might be possible. There's a very common theme of these marina and uplands developments, and the first is resiliency. As Victor said, many of our waterfront marinas have been damaged by hurricanes in the past 5 to 7 years or greater. There is sea level rise, which is requiring many of these marinas to go to floating docks, which is more expensive, but can last up to 75 years, which I understand. And so combining that with preserving the historic character of your city and the downtown area is critical, in addition to looking at some public aspects to help fund the costs of these infrastructure improvements. And this is a Boynton Beach CRA. CRA is a community redevelopment area that involves tax increment financing, where when you put improvements in the area, the increase in property values helps to fund further improvements. And so it's sort of a self-funding improvement, and that's part of what Panama City has downtown and has helped to fund all of these beautiful streets and improvements here. This is a very small marina, and it has a historic commercial marine industry, and the city purchased it to preserve that. It's only 19 wet slips, but there's an adjacent uplands that's already developed that has a complementary 38 wet slips, and that does have private residences and a restaurant. That's another common theme that you'll see, that really restaurants and promenades, public promenades with mature shade trees, places where everyone can go to walk and enjoy the beauty of our Florida lifestyle is critical, because there's so few places that have waterfront availability to the public. So it's very important to preserve it. Cape Coral, this is an example of a very ambitious plan that may be requiring P3 to offset a portion of the costs, and by P3, that a public-private partnership. This is going to have a community pool, and this was a building that had been there since the 60s that was destroyed by the hurricane several years ago, and so the city's looking at how they can redevelop it. This is anticipated to be about $225 million. It's kind of, you'll see, these are all different aspects of part on the spectrum. Some are smaller in cost, and some are quite expensive. Clearwater Beach, this is really a pure marina development with a beach walk promenade. What's interesting about this, it's about $43 million, and the county has committed $8 million in tourist development tax monies to help improve this facility. Fort Myers, this is another public-private partnership with the historic downtown marina. This is with Suntex. again, damaged by the hurricane, and this will incorporate some private development to help offset the cost of the marina. This is designed to have no public cost and purely private of about $45 million. This is another marina that's very close by, the downtown in Fort Myers. This one is leased to a private developer. There's going to be 2 very large towers. What's interesting here is that in exchange for an increase in density, a 30% increase, the city required that there be public space all throughout the front and in between the 2 towers. So it will incorporate access for everyone, in addition to having private residences and also hotels, hotel and restaurants. Fort Pierce is one that is going to be purely public. This is Marina Square. It is adjacent to an existing city marina. It will have an open plaza, lawns, splash pad, and a dog park. And this will be purely public, funded in about $21 million through public tax dollars and other incentives. Riviera Beach, this is another community redevelopment agency project where tax increment financing will help fund the improvements. This one includes workforce housing, which is interesting. It also incorporates a hotel and restaurants. And the public cost here is anticipated to only be $2 million with private cost of $150 million. St. Petersburg, this is where I live. There is a very large municipal marina, 640 slips. It was really damaged with the 2 hurricanes last year. These will be all floating docks. This is anticipated to cost $148 million. They previously were working with a private marina contractor to operate, but that fell through, and the city now has an RFP out for just a developer to rebuild the marina, but the city is going to retain full ownership and operate it. There's some other images of the downtown area, which, as Victor said, having your historic waterfront is so invaluable. St. Petersburg, they were about 200 years ago. We have tremendous public park areas. It's one of the largest waterfront park systems in the country, and it requires a referendum by the voters to change any of that public use. City of Sarasota, many of you may have heard of Marina Jack. Over the years, it's been there for a very long time. This new development is focusing on where there was a performing arts center called the Van Wezel, and that area, again, was destroyed by the hurricane, or not destroyed, but damaged. And there was almost a complete parking lot on all of this green that you see here. And so it's being transformed into a 53-acre public park. It will also have boat ramps and some transient docking. This is a community project really with cooperation from the city, the Community Redevelopment Agency, the county, and philanthropy. So the public funds are approximately $100 million, and then $100 million is being raised from private individuals or corporations. Vero Beach, this is, I call them the sins of the 60s, where there was an electric utility plant on the waterfront, and that was decommissioned in 2015, and it has been just really an unused site for quite a while. And this has been a very public process with actually a referendum to decide on how the land is going to be used. And it's going to have a marina and also restaurants and parks and a hotel. And the estimated cost of this is purely private and approximately $250 million. And that's the last of the examples that we have.
Thank you, Julie.
Thank you.
Let's thank Julie for the info. Is everybody feeling fueled up and now with food for thought and ready to put your hands on the plan? Claire Morris Williams was full-time in our firm for many years now. I'll just tell you that she was also one of my students 10, 12 years ago. I'm best student I ever had at the University of Miami. Go Canes. But Claire lives here. She lives about 20 minutes away. And so she works full-time here in the Panhandle. So who better to walk us through how we're going to do tonight's stations?
Thanks, Victor. Yeah, as Victor said, my name is Claire Morris Williams, and I've actually got family that lives in Panama City in the audience. So I'm very proud to be here and excited about continuing the efforts that have been started by you all in 2019. So I wanted to walk you through each of the stations. The most important part is getting your feedback. And you might think, well, you got our feedback in 2019. Why do you need it again? Well, times have changed. Some of it is still relevant, I would wager to say, and some of it needs to be refreshed, looked at again. There has been some time that has passed, and that time has been really well spent. We were just talking with the city about how incredible and remarkable it is, the pace at which the town has changed from 2019 to now. From us, we know that you've been living in it day to day. You've experienced the traffic jams and the construction, and you know the pains of that. For us, being able to come in and see all of the work that's been done and the change and the beauty and the excitement, it's really impressive, and we're really excited about this next piece. So for your feedback for this specific area, we'd like you to start. You can go around the room in any fashion, but do make sure you sign in with your name and your email, as well as pick up one of these surveys. You do not have to fill out the survey at that table. You can do it around the room, but make sure you return it to us so that we can get your input. Sure.
Can we email these or is there online?
It would be better if you returned it.
You may not be able to read my writing.
My dad's an engineer, I can read it. It's a good question, though. If you do forget, you could always come back tomorrow and fill in and do the open house one more time. Station 2 is a recap on the 2019 plan. So if you have any questions about what was done then, Amy will be there. And at that station, you can also fill out what's still relevant in your mind and what's changed. There'll be sticky notes and pens there. Station 3 is about the Woods and Partners plan. There too, we're seeing it as, you know, another look at the exact area. So right there, what maybe should from the 2019 plan be brought into that, and what from those 6 different options you really like and would love to see. Station 4 is the top 4 case studies from PFM. So Julia will be there to answer questions about those. If you have questions on the other ones, we can flip through on the slides here. 5 is just a bunch of base maps of the site. So as you go around, you might be getting some ideas from station 6 through 9 that is from the 2019 research and from some of the 2024 studies of different things that can be on the site: commercial, civic, open spaces, residential, and marina supporting services. And so on these, you'll vote with a red dot or a green dot. Yes, I like it, green. Red, no, I don't like it. And then we've also got sticky notes where you can write other ideas that we might not have thought of. And then on the aerial themselves, when you go to station 5, you can kind of start to say, I really liked the idea of an amphitheater, and I think it should go right here. Or I don't like the idea of a dog park. It should be somewhere else in the city. And the last, station 10, what else? What else can you think of that we haven't thought of that you didn't feel like there was a place to put it? Please stop by and put it there on the sticky note. So with that, I'll release you, and thank you all for your participation.